application to serve under as his vice president. The bishop said, I quote, "We used to say you are the leaders of tomorrow, but indeed you have proved that you are not leaders of the future, but of this our time." End of quote. He delivered these remarks, as I said, during a special service at the Holy Family Basilica only a few days ago, in memory of 41 young Kenyans killed by police gunfire during peaceful demonstrations. Police gunfire. I had occasion to visit some of the mosques in the city mortuary, for those of you who are Kenyans, and my heart almost stopped when I saw the brains of a young Kenyan, a GENZ, blown off by a sniper's bullet fired from on top of the National Assembly. 41 young Kenyans died. I completely concur with the bishop that his sentiments have accurately depict the social, economic, and even political climate in Kenya, which currently finds, in Kenya, that our country currently finds itself in. Instead of imagining a future where their voices might be eventually heard, GENZ declared that this is our time and we will be listened to this time around. In so doing, Kenya's youth gave life to Article 1 of our Constitution in 2010, to which I made reference, which defines the sovereignty of the people as all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. Article 2, the people may use their democratically elected representatives or themselves to exert their sovereign authority. This is what the Kenyan GENZs did. They did an incredible thing. They walked right inside Parliament and took over. Said, you elected us, we are taking back that authority. And I don't know how many in Africa will have taken note of that. The president sitting in the State House called it treason. He called it treason. Treasonous act. The Kenyans are acting in accordance with the Constitution, which is supreme. Friends, this was the first and most important step in understanding and interpreting what an inclusive democracy actually entails by our Kenyan youth. Inclusive democracy guarantees that every person, regardless of background, has a voice in decision-making processes. Because Kenya's GENZ read the most significant document in the nation, Constitution 2010, and by the way, his own words that document says, this is the supreme law of the land. And the land here is defined as Kenya. Any other law, including utterances like those by President Ruto, which is in contradiction of what the Constitution says, such formulation is void to the extent of such contradiction. Because Kenya's GENZ read the most significant document, as I say, the President was forced to withdraw the Anti-People Finance Bill 2024 as part of a series of substantial concessions. Kenya's youth grabbed literally their sovereign power and authority as outlined in the Constitution. And if you're in this country, you know the 204 members of Parliament who voted yes because their hands have been greased with money, corruption, even in Parliament, are finding it extremely difficult to go to their constituencies and do visit, because the agencies are saying they're going to visit with them. And so it has become very unattractive for any leader to be called by their bosses and given 2 million, 1 million shillings to go and vote in parliament. Because they know eventually their electorate will catch up with them by just going to visit them. Later in the day, my big brother, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, will be coming to talk to you. And I spoke to him on my way here, and he sends his greetings ahead of his coming. Please welcome him when he does come. People went to visit him yesterday on the space. And when they visited Baba, we called him, he had to change his telephone number. Because the GENZ put the number everywhere. And maybe it's a measure of cyberbullying. Please be kind to Baba. But if they can do that to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, imagine who else in this country. Our President William Ruto played smart. He thought he can join the space. And somebody or someone joined that space. He actually co-hosted. I'm told because of that action of co-hosting, that conversation with the Kenyan head of state, his landlord has asked him to leave. Because agencies have gone to visit with him. They are going to visit. So this concept of visiting is really, and you know, under our constitution, there's a freedom of assembly and association. So if you have the freedom to go and visit, nobody should take it away from you. And nobody should be scared. So leaders will now know. Honestly, as I started by saying, this is a God sent. Because Kenyan youth are saying, we are leaders of now. You have stolen from us. You have caused aggression against our rights in terms of Chapter 4 of the Kenyan Constitution. You are not transparent. You use vehicles which are gasless. I saw a friend from Lusaka, Zambia, a young lady. I spoke to President Akarege about a week ago. And he told me when he took over as the president of Zambia, he refused to buy any new vehicles. And his ministers were very unhappy with him. But now the Zambians are beginning to see what President Akarege did. We need kind of leadership. When I was coming here, and when you get to a tea break, you will see fewer gaslers because there are ministers with you in this compound. Each of them with fewer gaslers, with bodyguards, with all kinds of personnel. Kenyans are demanding accountability. By bringing Article 37 to life, which says that is under Kenyan Constitution. And allow me to use that Kenyan example for the leaders, the young leaders from Africa, in the hope you can use this as a test case. Actually, what is going on in Kenya should be a case study for the whole of the African region. Because Kenyan youth got so highly educated. So remember, this is a country that invented M-Pesa. And they get into space quickly and occupy. They occupy Baba's space. Under Article 37 of our Constitution, every person has the right to peaceably and unarmed, that is the condition, unarmed, to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities. That's the end of that. So Generation Z has done more to promote social cohesion in 1 month than the constitutional body that is charged with this responsibility, called the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, and to get all the political parties represented here, including WIPER. And all political leadership have done in the previous 14 years. We need to clap for Gen Z. Imagine they have taken over all what others have said they're trying to do, and political parties talk about cohesion and what have you, the rights, and Chapter 4 of our Constitution, including Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity, which they're actually seeking enforcement by emphatically declaring that Gen Z are tribeless, partyless, and leaderless. You may help to eliminate tribalism and inequality as well as for more sustainable development for all. I believe that African youth can similarly emulate Kenyan Gen Z by claiming the rights inherent in their respective constitutions. There are other ways to strengthen the role of youth in governance. There is, for example, electoral participation that ensures youth are registered to vote and empowered to participate in elections. We can create youth parliaments and councils, platforms for youth to engage in decision-making processes that allow them to voice their concerns and contribute to policy discussions. There is also civil society engagement, and civil society in this country, for example, is strong, that encourages youth to participate in civic organizations and social movements, and that also enables them to advocate for change and hold governments accountable. You know, we used to hear of the Asian tigers, countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Korea, South Korea, and others, the Asian tigers, that within some space managed to lift their countries out of poverty to a situation where some of them are even contributors to international lending institutions. And I personally believe the time for the African lion has come. And we only achieve that dream to the African youth leaders. If African youth do what Kenyans have started to do, we are going to realize a decade for African lionism, where the economies will grow, where thieving leaders will be gotten rid of. In fact, if this continues, anybody who is stolen funds will not even want to go for elected posts, elected positions, because they know they'll be held accountable. The practice in Kenya has been that people head the participant organizations and others, they go steal huge sums of money, and election time comes, they go and bribe everybody. In fact, Gen Z, I want to invite you to look at the next election. Where Kenyans were made to look so helpless by leaders telling them at the end of a campaign rally, line up. Women line up this way, the youth this way, the men this way, and you go, you have done your hand changing, 100 shillings, bribing your mothers and your fathers and your brothers so they can elect you into office. The Gen Z have placed those people on notice. If you're that type of a leader, you don't qualify to be a leader if you're already bribing your way through elected posts. For the young Kenyans who are here, when I first went to Parliament, I was very young. I was like you. I didn't have money. I just had a university degree, gone through Kenya School of Law. I thought I had something to offer. That time, although it was a single-party dictatorship, you were not allowed to spend more than 30,000 shillings at a campaign, one single campaign. Now, our legislators have even failed to enact some very important legislation, which was envisaged under Constitution 2010. That is of campaign financing. There should be a campaign financing act And I want to suggest when our current legislators come back from their self-given leave, and the only institution left was the Senate, and I continue to say congratulations to the Kenyan Senate, but the country was facing a crisis, they refused to acknowledge. The National Assembly, after passing that inoperative, unfortunate legislation on finance bill, actually adjourned. But they even made a terrible mistake. They said before we adjourn, we are allowing the Kenyan military to go to the streets. They passed in a record, no debate, move of a motion, and one contributor from the opposition side and Minister for Defense was given permission to deploy military against innocent Kenyan citizens. When they meet, I want to challenge Gen Zs, if you really want to complete this accountability game, demand immediate enactment of the Campaign Financing Act or bill, I will come there, which will limit expenditure. That way, the young people will have hope to get elected. Because as it is, you have no hope. Because these are the mandarins coming, helicopters, huge sums of money, they bribe the voters, and unless a natural leader then will never be able to emerge. I hope I made that point. We can improve civic education for the youth, which will foster the understanding of democratic principles, human rights, and the importance of active citizenship. We can also increase the number of leadership development programs available to the youth that will enhance their leadership skills, that will also improve their critical thinking abilities and problem-solving capacities, and empower them to assume leadership roles in governance. Further, we can have a mentoring and intergenerational dialogue that connects youth with experienced mentors and that facilitates intergenerational dialogue to be able to promote knowledge transfer and foster youth engagement. I hope Gen Z will also take that kindly. And yes, you also need a bit of mentoring. Nobody in the world has monopoly of knowledge. And you know, you come armed with a lot of energy and commitment. But you may need some of us to be able to sit and say, wait a minute, I think you can moderate this approach or that approach. And this is why they are saying, Kenyans are also saying, because I heard that from Alex Materia, that they don't want dialogue. I'm going to mention that later on that I was chair of a dialogue committee called the National Dialogue Committee. I co-chair with a member for Kikuyu, not very far from here, who finds it extremely difficult to go. Imagine my co-chair can't hold a meeting in his own constituency. Because people went to visit him. They visited him in such large numbers that he didn't have enough tea to give them. Time for dialogue must also be in consonance with the reality, the political reality of the time. I posit that there's nothing wrong with having dialogue. But Kenyans are saying there are so many of these. Why don't we first of all, we are building bridges and with the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative in this country, a proposed constitutional amendment. Maybe Kenyans themselves, the Gen Z, can come up with an approach that will bring about a constitutional amendment to anchor some of these wonderful thoughts that Kenyans are not willing at the moment to deal with. As a co-chair of the National Dialogue Committee, we have some 8 bills that are pending in Parliament. If they are properly implemented, then this country will say, yeah, it makes sense to have dialogue. But what is the point of having dialogue upon dialogue upon dialogue and nothing comes out of it? So that conversation, I think, is important. And I want to invite all of us to think of the best approach and the timing. First of all, who is going to lead this dialogue and when? And are we going to take into account what has already happened before? Because again, you cannot, as citizens, even as families, a family that sits together and negotiates and agrees on a formula to proceed even as a family makes headway. But we cannot just bluntly say we don't want any dialogue. The people of South Sudan that saw the name Garang, that name is very, very important, very special to me, because I worked with our late brother, Dr. John Garang, who actually fathered the state of Southern Sudan, the world's newest state. I can see that by consensus, through some process of dialogue, they have even agreed to extend the interim period for another 1 year. And then they can have an election. And that was, I'm told, an agreement across political parties and leaders. And I saw President Salva Kiir saying, at his age, he doesn't want to continue leading that country forever. Now that is shows statesmanship. Well, as involves regards innovation and technology, digital literacy and access, we should be able to empower the youth to engage on online discussions, advocate for their rights, and participate in e-governance initiatives. Further, we can support youth-led innovations that leverage technology to improve governance, such as accountability, apps, data visualization tools, and citizen reporting platforms. In addition, social media engagement is vital in encouraging youth to use social media platforms responsibly for civic education, engagement, information dissemination, and community mobilization. Let me take this moment to focus on the importance of youth political party wings in fostering inclusive democracy and thereby enhancing the role of youth in governance. Many political parties, particularly in Kenya, and there are very many, we are not short of them. By the way, what you have seen here as leaders, people representing political parties, is just a tip of the iceberg. We have 90 political parties. 90 political parties. But sometimes then we've also taken the initiative, I'm sure, to coalesce around coalition making. I think coalition making and management is also very important. For example, a man from Democratic Action Party, he gave me the greetings of his party leader, Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa, and I should have given you his because I was speaking to him as I was coming, because I don't know who gave whose greetings, because to manage a coalition, you must be constantly in communication. Our own party, and I want to recognize these two young people, Edwin Musembi, the chairperson, University chapter of WIPER, and there's Moses Lulu, a youth leader from Nakuru County, right? They actually confronted, I remember that Edwin confronted us yesterday in the next meeting. You know, they are not waiting. These GENZs are not waiting. They just came and said, we demand our space. For a start, you people must expel one man called Faramali. That's my deputy president. That was a demand, an express demand, because if a leader can say, if I was president, I would kill 5,000 in a day. Well, I'm quite sure my deputy would say that was a slip of the tongue. Because that was a very serious statement. We, as political parties, we need to be able to save lives, not to do away with them. So political parties in Kenya, in the region, I mean, looking at Uganda, for example, our friends from Uganda, from Tanzania, I know that President Kagame is going through an election in Rwanda. I talked about South Sudan, and I know that, Somalia has joined the new key in the bloc within the East African region. And the day Somalia will be able to have proper practice of political party organization and management of their country will be stable. Right now, the formations are in the form of 2-3 main clans, the Hawiyas and the Darots, and another one called 0.5 of a clan. Yeah, and then because they're all Somalis, they're all Muslims, but because they come from different sub-clans, they were able to even live together. But in Somalia, that country is making tremendous progress, and that's why she's been able to be welcomed as a member of East African Community. Because it's Burundi, 7 members of East African Community. We have a standard approach to political party formation and the engagement of our youth. I repeat, the time for the African lion to arise is now, and this is going to be led by the youth of Africa. If the political elite then truly take the youth seriously, you must quickly provide places for them at the table. If you don't provide your demand, then they'll take it. Our youth need to have an impact on party policy formulation and leadership selection, because they may provide a new perspective on potentially outdated policies and ideas, including even the very important matter of what political parties stand for. Are you central? Are you left of the left? Are you right of the right? As is happening also in Europe, look at what is happening in the elections recently in the UK, where Labour had to sweep back to power. Swept over the Conservatives, because Conservatives are by their very nature right. But in France, President Macron had to very quickly assemble everybody to say the rightists are taking over, because they took over the election process to the European Parliament. A lot of things are happening across the world. Look at the world's largest democracy in India, where even Prime Minister Modi had to do something to stabilize the country. Now, we are all watching what's happening in America. We saw the debate between former President Donald Trump and President Biden. So, no, I'm not quite sure whether Kenyans should follow that example, the way they conduct elections in America. They call each other names. I saw Trump calling President Biden Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe. And they said, this guy, that guy. Yeah. But that is the extent of expression. Therefore, I think we have come to a stage in Africa, beginning in my own country, Kenya, where the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech should not be hindered, provided, of course, you are guided by the laws of the land, which say if you abuse me very badly, I can also go to court and defend myself. So there are things about laws relating to defamation, to libel, if it's in writing, that should guide conduct. But beyond that, there should be absolute freedom of expression. And the Gen Zs have said there will never be fear in this country. And I want to suggest that African countries should allow the youth to express themselves freely. Absolutely free. I am just about to conclude. Kenyans who are amongst you will have seen that I was at we call it Kenyatta International Conference Center 2 days ago, when the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission ID Amendment Act 2024 was signed into law by President Ruto. This was the first fruit of the 9 legislations agreed upon by the NADCO, the National Dialogue Committee. I did mention that I was a co-chair. As you may recall, NADCO actually was set up last year following the killing again by police gunfire of 75 young men and women during the Maandamano demonstrations against the Finance Act of that year, 2023. In quick succession, peaceful demonstrations in 2023, peaceful demonstrations in 2024. The result is some enhanced political space for Kenyan youth at very, very, very high cost. 100+ lives lost unnecessarily. At KCC, I had an opportunity to speak. I was told for only 4 minutes. And I said what I said. One of the things I told President Ruto was that you cannot wish away the Gen Z revolution. Although my political party is called WIPER Democratic Movement, I can tell you that dictators will be wiped out by youth, not in Kenya, but in Africa. So I think the name of my party is becoming a lot more relevant. Wiping out corruption, wiping out dictatorship, wiping out opulence. You know, Kenyans are amazing. They even look at the way you've stolen their money and you're wearing expensive suits. They even are being able to Google and see which shops you bought this is from. And I tell it to you. This minister must remain nameless, but I saw a minister when I was waiting to come here, a cabinet minister in William Ruto's government. And she told me, shockingly, that her own daughter was in that demonstrations against her mother and against her president. This is a Kenyan thing. The youth are saying, well, even if you're in that government, Mama, I'm sorry, I'm out. We're getting our destiny, we'll not allow our country to go to the dogs. And she said, we have all learned our lessons in humility, thanks to Gen Z. No Kenyan will go about showing off what kind of car you're driving, what shoes you wear. Yes, they're saying, wait, and it's so biblical. They've even put order in churches. Nobody will go carrying 20 million shillings in a church function and donate it. They'll be asked by Gen Z, wait a minute, we know your salary. Look at the order that this within just under 1 month. What has happened in the country. More importantly, Gen Z have shown Kenya, the region, the continent, and the world how youth inspired active participation through representation, education, innovation, and policy reforms can bring democratic ideas to life, resulting in the defeat of authoritarian practices. I believe that if we are to realize any of our visions, be it Vision 2030, as in Kenya, or Agenda 2063, which is Africa's blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future, then our youth must have their seats at the table today, not tomorrow. Now, not in 2030 or in emergent 2063. That's too long to wait. In conclusion, it is imperative, ladies and gentlemen, to invest in youth development and create opportunities for their meaningful participation in decision-making processes, ensuring that their voices are not only heard, but acted upon. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Honorable Stephen KALONZO MUSKOKA. Another round of applause for him.
Another member of our party has just joined us, a member of parliament, but he voted no. Member from Bakassi South, Honorable Julius Abaka. So he has no visitors.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Now, karibu Mheshimiwa Mahade. Mheshimiwa Mahade is a member of Parliament in the National Assembly from Embakasi South. Our ED Alex told me this morning that tomorrow all the delegates who are coming from other countries in Africa, he will be taking them to a tour of Nairobi. So Alex, one of the areas that you might want them to visit is Embakasi South, so that they can experience